They say the beginning of the end doesn't come with a bang. It's quiet, subtle, a flicker of doubt that worms its way in and never quite leaves. For me, it was a business card. It was a Thursday evening, sometime after 9. The house was quiet, except for the sound of the shower running upstairs. I had just finished cleaning up dinner. Baked salmon, her favorite, and I was heading into the bedroom to grab my phone charger. That's when I saw it. The card sat on her nightstand, not hidden, not tucked away, but placed deliberately, like it belonged there. Jason Clark, Strategic Partnerships Director. Clean font, thick stock, expensive. I stood there staring at it longer than I should have. Something about the name nagged at me. Jason Clark. I knew I'd heard it before. Not recently, but sometime in the last few months. I closed my eyes, trying to trace it back. Then it hit me. We were in the kitchen. I was pouring us both wine. Emily was talking about someone at work who kept trying to one-up her in meetings. Jason something, she had said. He's smart, but kind of arrogant. Always acting like he's God's gift to marketing. She laughed it off, said it wasn't a big deal. Now here his card was. Not in her office bag. Not on the kitchen counter. On her nightstand, a few inches from the photo of us on our wedding day. I turned it over. Blank. No number scribbled, no meeting time, no notes. Just the name. I set it back down exactly where I found it, like disturbing it too much would make this feel even more real. When Emily came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, her skin damp and glistening, I didn't want to jump into anything. I didn't want to be that husband, paranoid, accusatory, dramatic. So I just asked. Hey, I said, lifting the card between my fingers. Why was this on your nightstand? She glanced at it and gave a casual shrug, like I'd asked about a grocery receipt. Oh, that? Jason's card. We were passing out business info for the new client this week. Must have dropped it in my bag. I set it there earlier so I wouldn't forget it in the morning. I didn't say anything. She looked at me and rolled her eyes. Oh, come on, Thomas. Don't start. It's a business card. I didn't say anything. You didn't have to, she said, drying her hair with the towel. You've got that face again. What face? The face you make when you're building a story in your head. Look, I know you don't like me working late, but this is just work, okay? Jason's just a guy on the team. I didn't say anything about not liking your work. She scoffed and tossed the towel into the hamper, more forcefully than necessary. You don't have to. You've been weird every time I mention his name. Honestly, it's getting old. I stayed quiet, but inside, something shifted. Because here's the thing. I hadn't mentioned Jason more than once. She had. A few comments here and there, dropped like breadcrumbs over months. First, it was about a pitch meeting he hijacked. Then it was a story about how he saved the day during a client crisis. She didn't even say it with admiration, more like mild amusement, like she was annoyed by him. But now she was defending him, hard and fast. She turned to me again, crossing her arms. This is exactly the problem. You don't trust me. You think I'm doing something wrong just because a man's name shows up on a stupid piece of paper. I never said that, I replied, my voice calm. Yeah, well, you don't have to. Your silence says it for you. I looked at her. Really looked at her. Her jaw was tight, her posture defensive. She was angry, yes, but also scared? No, guarded. The way she was talking felt practiced, like she'd rehearsed it. That's what got to me the most. Not the card, not the name, but the way she turned the spotlight around so fast it gave me whiplash. I asked a question, and suddenly I was on trial. Are we really doing this? She asked, breaking the silence. Interrogating me over office contacts? This is what our marriage has come to. I shook my head slowly. No, it's not. She paused at that, expecting a fight I didn't give her. And that's when something in her expression flickered. Surprise. Maybe even disappointment. I think I'll turn in early, I said. Long day. Yeah, sure. Good night. She turned away and busied herself with laundry or her skincare routine. I didn't know. I walked out and sat alone in the living room, the business card still on my mind. It was such a small thing. just a piece of paper. But in that moment it became more than that. It became a symbol, not just of another man, but of something deeper: distance. A growing gap between us I had been trying to pretend wasn't there. Emily and I had been married for 6 years. We met at a charity fundraiser. She was bold, magnetic, the kind of woman who made you feel like the only person in the room. I was quieter, more reserved, the solid guy. Dependable, predictable, safe. Her words, not mine. At first, we balanced each other out. I brought calm, she brought spark. But lately, that balance had felt off. She had grown more independent, which I supported or thought I did. She took up kickboxing, then wine tastings, then a podcast club that met late on weeknights. She laughed less with me and more with people I'd never met. I chalked it up to normal evolution. People change. Marriages ebb and flow. That's what they say. But now I wasn't so sure, because that card, that single moment, flipped something in my brain. Not panic, not jealousy, just clarity. The version of our life I had been clinging to, the shared routines, the smiles over coffee, the soft "I love you" before sleep. It was slipping. Maybe it had been slipping for a long time, and I just hadn't noticed. Or maybe I had noticed, but chose to ignore it. But now it was impossible to ignore. I sat there for a long time that night, long after Emily had gone to bed. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just thought about how trust doesn't break in a dramatic explosion. Sometimes, it breaks in the quiet click of a business card being set down beside a wedding photo. And the silence that follows? That's the sound of something starting to unravel. After that night, something changed in me. Quietly, but completely. I didn't say anything more about the card. I didn't bring up Jason again. But it was like a lens had shifted over my eyes. Suddenly, everything had a different tint. I started seeing things not for what she said they were, but for what they might have actually been. The mind is funny like that. It doesn't give you answers, it gives you flashes. Little fragments that didn't make sense at the time but now rearranged themselves with alarming clarity. There was the dress. A navy blue satin thing I didn't recognize, hanging at the edge of her side of the closet. I remembered the day she brought it home. She said it was for a charity dinner, one I assumed was work-related. But that night came and went, and I never saw her wear it. When I asked, she just said the event got postponed. Or maybe canceled. I can't even remember exactly, only that the explanation sounded more like a placeholder than the truth. Then there was the perfume. Expensive. Not her usual. I noticed it once when she left the house for a girls' night, and it stopped me in my tracks. I hadn't smelled it before, but it lingered long after she was gone. A mix of jasmine and something sharper, something meant to attract, not comfort. I remember thinking, why would you wear that for a book club? Book club, right? Emily hadn't finished a novel in over a year. I know, because I used to tease her about the stack of untouched paperbacks she kept on her nightstand like decor. But suddenly, she was out on Tuesday nights, talking about the new author they're trying this month. I never pressed her. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't want to seem like the controlling husband. That word, controlling, had become a we *p*n in our arguments. Anytime I asked a question, she'd say I was policing her. So I stopped asking. But now, with the card still fresh in my memory, all those details started to resurface. No longer isolated, but interconnected. Her phone had changed too. It used to sit charging on the kitchen counter while we made dinner together or watched TV. But now, it was glued to her hand, face down when set on the table, always on vibrate. Even when she left the room to shower, she took it with her, as if it were an extension of her body. First, I thought she was just being careful. Then I noticed how quickly she turned it over if I walked by, like she didn't want me to see who was messaging her. There was one night, probably 2 months ago, when I caught a glimpse. A notification had flashed briefly before she locked the screen. Just a first name, Jason. I didn't say anything. I remember that moment so clearly now, because I had felt something then, not suspicion, exactly, but unease. Like my body had clocked something my mind wasn't ready to accept. Another memory rose up, her car. I had borrowed it one weekend when mine was at the shop. In the passenger footwell, I noticed a second pair of shoes. Black pumps. Not the practical ones she wore to the office, but a strappy, elegant pair that looked made for walking across a lobby, not down a sidewalk. When I asked her about them later, she laughed. Said they were her just-in-case shoes. In case her feet got sore and she wanted to swap out. It made sense. It did. But only until it didn't. Then there were the routes. We shared a Google account for calendars and maps. I wasn't snooping, not at first. One afternoon, I was planning a trip to see my sister and noticed Emily's location history was still enabled. Just curiosity. But curiosity has a sharp edge when it's mixed with doubt. One particular entry stood out. A Thursday night a week earlier. I had been out of town for work. She told me she stayed home, said she was exhausted from meetings, but her location had pinged to a town 45 minutes away, then back again around midnight. I stared at the screen for a long time trying to make sense of it. A dinner? An event? But she told me she didn't go anywhere. I mentioned it casually the next night. You go anywhere Thursday? She didn't even blink. Nope. I was home all night. Why? I let it go. But my gut didn't. Her friends had changed too. Or maybe they hadn't. Maybe it was just how they treated me that shifted. A few months back, we had dinner with two couples she knew from work. During drinks, one of the women laughed and called me Mr. Reliable. She didn't mean it as a compliment. It was the tone that gave it away. Another time, one of her guy friends, someone she swore was married, joked that I was the safe guy. The one who probably irons his socks. Everyone laughed. Emily laughed the loudest. That night, I said something. I asked why she didn't defend me. She shrugged. It was just a joke, Thomas. God. Why are you so sensitive lately? I didn't have an answer. I didn't even know when lately began. In hindsight, I think I knew before I knew. I think my body picked up on it. In the pauses, the deflections, the way she looked at me sometimes like I was furniture she didn't remember buying. The warmth between us had thinned out. We still slept in the same bed, but her back was always turned. Her goodnight kisses were hollow. Not cruel, just mechanical. Routine. Like she was checking off a box before turning out the light. When we touched, it felt like I was interrupting something. I remember one morning, maybe 3 weeks before the card incident, I tried to kiss her neck while she was getting ready. Just playful, just affectionate. She flinched. Not dramatically, just enough for me to notice. Then she laughed and said she was ticklish. I let it go. I had let so many things go. Because that's what you do when you love someone, right? You give the benefit of the doubt. You don't want to be the jealous husband. You don't want to accuse someone without proof. You don't want to break something that might just be bent. But now I was starting to realize. It wasn't bent. It was broken. Not in the loud, dramatic way people imagine. No screaming matches, no shattered plates. Just erosion. Quiet, steady erosion. A chisel taken to our foundation in the form of little lies, withheld truths and redirections. Every time I had doubted myself, told myself I was overthinking, too possessive, too needy, I had been silencing the part of me that was trying to protect me. Now that voice was loud, and it was saying, you were never crazy. You were right. You just didn't want to be. There's a specific kind of silence that creeps in when love turns into suspicion. Not the comfortable quiet between two people who've grown used to each other. No, this silence is cold, clinical. It listens for footsteps, watches for phone screens, memorizes timestamps. I had lived in that silence for weeks, maybe months, but all of that changed the night I followed her. Emily had said she was going to her office to work late on a client presentation with a couple team members. We've got a deadline Monday morning, she said, pressing a kiss to my cheek without looking me in the eye. I might be home late. Don't wait up. Those words, don't wait up, they echoed in my head like a threat disguised as a courtesy. I waited until 10 minutes after she pulled out of the driveway, then grabbed my keys and followed. I wasn't proud of it. I had always told myself I wasn't that guy, the one who spies, who trails, who snoops. But at that point, my pride was buried under a mountain of unanswered questions. I kept a few cars behind her. It wasn't hard. She was predictable with her turns, always signaling too early, a habit I used to find endearing. I followed her through a stretch of downtown, past the office district, then further than made sense. We passed the street where her company's building stood. She didn't slow down. No parking garages, no offices lit up at this hour. Just a straight sh*T toward the outskirts of the city. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe they were meeting at a co-working space? Maybe the power was out at the office? But then she took a left off the highway and turned into a dimly lit lot outside a rundown bar called the Dockside. I knew the place. Pool tables, neon beer signs, the kind of joint you stop at when you don't want to be seen. She pulled into a space near the back, farthest from the entrance. I parked on the opposite end, waited, heart thudding against my ribs like it wanted out. I watched her step out of the car, heels clicking, coat pulled tight. She looked good, effortlessly put together in a way that didn't match the place. Then he showed up. Jason. I recognized him from her company's website. Square jaw, confident smile. The kind of guy who said, "Trust me," with a smirk and probably meant the opposite. He walked up casually, like this was routine. Like this wasn't a risk at all. Emily smiled when she saw him. Not the polite, strained smile I had grown used to, but something warmer. Familiar. They didn't kiss, but the hug was long. Long enough for her to close her eyes. His hand lingered on her back. She looked up at him with a softness I hadn't seen on her face in a long time. That alone was enough. I didn't need to see more. But I couldn't look away. They walked inside together. I sat there, frozen in the driver's seat, hands clenched around the wheel. The logic in me screamed, "Go home. Don't do this to yourself." But the other voice, the one that had been quietly assembling the puzzle for weeks, told me, "This is what you needed." I waited outside for nearly an hour. I didn't move. I didn't cry. I just stared at the bar's entrance like it might give me closure. Cars came and went. People stumbled out laughing, shouting, drunk and careless. But Emily didn't come out. I reached for my phone, opened the camera app, and zoomed in on her car. Snapped a photo. Then took another of the entrance, and another of the clock on my dashboard. Proof. Not for a courtroom, not for a fight, for myself. I needed something real to look at when doubt inevitably tried to crawl back in. Around 11:30, they emerged. Jason's hand was at the small of her back. She was laughing, the kind of open, unrestrained laugh she hadn't shared with me in over a year, cut deeper than anything else. Then, as if some cruel director had choreographed it, she turned her face toward him, and he brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. It was small, innocent even, but only on the surface. I took one last photo, then started the car and pulled away before they could see me. I drove aimlessly for a while, letting the images replay in my mind. Not to punish myself, but to process the death of an illusion. There was no room left for maybe. No space for benefit of the doubt. I had seen it with my own eyes. She wasn't working late. She wasn't at a meeting. She wasn't just friends with Jason. She was gone. When I got home, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone. The photos were still open on the screen. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Just a hollow clarity. Like waking up after a long, strange dream. She came home close to 1 a.m. I didn't confront her. I pretended to be asleep, breathing slowly, eyes closed tight. She moved quietly through the room, her perfume trailing behind her. The same one she used to wear on our anniversary. The same one I hadn't smelled in months until now. She paused near the edge of the bed, like she might say something, then slipped under the covers without a word. Her breathing evened out. Mine didn't. The next morning, she was already gone by the time I woke up. A note on the fridge said, "Early meeting, love you." Love you. The words felt foreign and used, like finding a letter addressed to someone else in your mailbox. I stood there staring at that little square of paper for a long time before crumpling it and tossing it in the trash. That day, I didn't go to work. I told my boss I needed a personal day and spent the hours organizing everything: emails, receipts, photos, the things I had ignored, the stories she had spun. I wasn't preparing for a fight. I was preparing for truth. There's a strange power in evidence. It doesn't bring comfort, but it brings certainty. And certainty, even when painful, is more bearable than living in a fog. That night, when Emily came home, I didn't ask how her day was. I didn't ask about her meeting. I didn't ask about Jason. I smiled, poured her a glass of wine, and kissed her cheek, because I had seen everything I needed to see. The morning after I followed Emily, I woke up before dawn and just lay there, staring at the ceiling. The weight of what I'd seen pressed on me like a physical thing, but beneath it, there was a strange, steady calm. It wasn't shock anymore. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was resolve. I didn't confront her that night because I knew an argument would only end one way. She'd deny it, turn it around, and leave me questioning myself again. I had spent months living in that cycle. Suspicion, confrontation, explanation, guilt. I wasn't going back there. Not this time. If this was going to end, it would end on my terms. I got out of bed quietly, leaving her asleep, and went to the kitchen. The note she'd left the day before, "Early meeting, love you," still sat crumpled in the trash. I stared at it for a moment, then reached in, smoothed it out, and laid it flat on the table. A prop. Evidence. Proof of how easily she could lie and still sign it with love. I brewed coffee but didn't drink it. Instead, I opened my laptop and began building a folder. I titled it simply, Emily. Inside, I dragged the photos from the night before. Emily stepping out of her car at the dockside, Jason's hand on her back, the time-stamped image of the bar's neon sign glowing over their heads. I added *TS of her location history, bank statements that showed mysterious restaurant charges, and the text messages I'd once glimpsed on her tablet before she yanked it away. Each file felt like a brick in a wall. Not a wall between us, that wall was already there, but a wall to protect myself. By noon, the folder was complete. For the first time in months, my hands didn't shake. I thought about what to do next. I could confront her directly. I could file for divorce quietly. I could show Jason's wife if he had one. All those options whirled in my head like cards being shuffled, but none of them felt right. Confrontation was messy. Divorce was inevitable but premature. And telling Jason's family would just make me look like the villain. Then I thought about Emily's job. Her image. Emily had always been obsessed with her reputation at work. She wasn't just an employee there. She was the golden one. The dependable creative, who pulled off impossible deadlines and charmed clients at cocktail hours. She loved that people saw her as flawless. It wasn't just a job. It was her stage. I remembered the way she'd mocked me at one of her company dinners. She told a story about how I once forgot our anniversary because of a work project. Everyone laughed. I had laughed too, because what else could I do? But inside, it had stung. Not the story itself, but the way she turned me into the punchline to boost her own shine. Now, staring at the folder, a cold thought formed. If she wanted to play a role at work, maybe it was time for the truth to show up there too. The idea wasn't revenge. Not exactly. It was exposure. A mirror. If she wanted to present herself as perfect, let her colleagues see the real picture. Not my version, but hers, captured in time-stamped photos and receipts. I printed everything. Not just one copy, several. *TS of routes from our shared Google account. Copies of credit card statements with charges at hotels I'd never heard of. The text fragments. "Last night was amazing," from Jason. "Can't wait to see you again," from her. Even the simple, stupid details, like the second pair of shoes in her car, the new perfume she only wore on book club nights. I slipped each printout into a manila envelope, one by one, methodically, like evidence in a courtroom. When I was done, I sealed it and wrote her name on the front in block letters. Emily Clark. Then I sent it. I didn't mail it. That was too slow. I used a courier service to deliver it directly to her office, marked confidential. She'd open it at her desk or in a meeting, maybe in the privacy of a bathroom stall. Either way, she'd see it where she felt the safest, where she performed her best role. As the courier drove off, A strange calm settled over me. Not satisfaction. Not yet. But a sense of movement, like the first crack of ice before it splits. I didn't stop there. I began preparing my next steps like a man planning a long campaign. I backed up everything to a cloud drive she didn't know about. I reached out to a lawyer I'd researched quietly over the past week. A no-nonsense woman named Laura who specialized in high-asset divorces and had a reputation for being both discreet and relentless. I didn't schedule a meeting yet, but I made the call. Got on her calendar. Then I started changing my own patterns. Small things. I opened a separate bank account, redirected my paychecks, moved my passport and vital documents to a safety deposit box. Not because I thought Emily would retaliate, but because I didn't want to be vulnerable anymore. All the while, Emily acted like nothing had changed. She texted me at lunch. "Crazy day, miss you." She sent me a selfie from her office bathroom, smiling at the camera with that practiced ease. She had no idea what was already on its way to her inbox. That night, when she came home, she was in a good mood. She poured wine, asked about my day, even reached out to touch my arm. Felt rehearsed, like she was trying to reinforce the illusion. I matched her tone, smiled, answered her questions, asked about work. She talked about an upcoming corporate party, the one she'd been planning for weeks. She was excited about it, said it was her big moment with the executives. She had even bought a new dress. I pictured her opening that envelope at her desk, her hands trembling. I pictured her logging into her email, seeing the attachments I had sent. Not with accusations, not with words, just images and facts. Let her prepare for that party. I wasn't going to make a scene at home. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to smash plates or demand explanations. Those were the moves she expected, the ones she'd already scripted excuses for. No, I was going to be quiet. And in that quiet, I was going to let the truth walk into her world and stand beside her. By the time she realized what had happened, it would be too late to spin it. Too late to blame me. Too late to play innocent. For the first time in months, I felt like I was holding the pen again. Like I was no longer a character in her story but the author of my own. That night, lying next to her in bed, I stared at the ceiling again. But this time there was no fog, no loop of questions. Just a single thought, steady and sharp as a blade. Tomorrow everything changes. The day of the corporate party arrived, and Emily was electric from the moment she woke up. She floated through the house in that specific kind of high-energy performance mode I'd seen before. The way she got before big meetings, company retreats, holiday events where she could be photographed shaking hands and wearing a smile like a designer accessory. This party wasn't just a night of celebration for her company. It was a showcase, an unspoken audition for the next promotion, the next level. She spent hours getting ready. Hair curled, makeup flawless, her new dress, champagne-colored, form-fitting, elegant in a way that almost made me forget. Almost. "Zip me up?" she asked, turning her back toward me in the hallway mirror. I stepped forward, hands calm, steady. The zipper glided upward without resistance. She smiled at me in the reflection, radiant and sure of herself. "Do I look okay?" she asked. I looked at her for a moment, then smiled back. "You'll steal the room." She kissed my cheek, and I let her. Part of me wanted to ask if she had checked her email, or opened the envelope, but I didn't. I didn't need to. I'd seen the read receipts. I knew the files had been opened, viewed, downloaded. No reply, no confrontation, just silence. I stayed behind. She had insisted the event was for employees only, which, under normal circumstances, I would have believed. But by now, I knew how that game worked. Keeping me away allowed her to be whoever she wanted without the complication of my presence. No reminders of home, or responsibility, or reality. But this time, reality would be waiting for her before she even stepped up to the mic. I had arranged for it days ago. I knew her schedule. I knew the room. The envelope I sent to her office, the one with the evidence, wasn't the only one. I had mailed several identical copies, addressed to a few key people. Her manager, her work best friend, Monica, a senior VP who had once flirted with Emily in front of me like I wasn't even standing there. Each envelope contained the same thing. A printed packet of her double life. No commentary, no anger, just proof. I had timed the deliveries for late morning. That way, word would have enough time to spread but not enough time for her to stop it. I wanted her to walk into that party thinking the world was still hers. Let her enter the ballroom as the queen, just long enough to feel the ground shift. I don't know exactly how it unfolded. I wasn't there, but I've replayed it in my mind, pieced together from the fallout. She walked in like she always did. High heels, confident smile, air-kissing people who didn't matter while making eye contact with the ones who did. For the first 30 minutes, she was untouchable. I imagined her posing for group photos, her laugh echoing over jazz music and clinking glasses. But then, something changed. It started with a glance. Someone looking at her phone, then at Emily, then another. A whisper here, a hushed conversation at the open bar. Monica avoiding eye contact. Her manager gesturing for her to come over with an expression that wasn't quite smiling. She must have felt it then, the shift. The weight of eyes that weren't admiring anymore but judging, dissecting. Then came the confrontation. Not loud, not scandalous. Just a quiet pull into a hallway. A closed door. Questions she couldn't deflect with charm. The party went on without her. At home, I sat on the back porch with a glass of whiskey, listening to the evening cicadas and imagining the panic setting in. I pictured her checking her email again and again, reading the documents like maybe the words would change if she blinked fast enough. My phone stayed silent. When she finally walked through the door close to midnight, I heard the difference in her footsteps. Not the usual click of confidence. Slower, hesitant. She entered the kitchen and stood in the doorway, still in the champagne dress, but something about it looked off now, like the shine had dulled. "I know," she said softly. I didn't look up from my glass. "Know what?" She swallowed. "About the emails, the envelopes, everything." "Ah," I said. "So we're skipping the part where you lie." She sat across from me, but it felt like she was a mile away. Her posture was collapsed. Not in defeat exactly, but something close to recognition. Like the part of her that had kept the show going finally ran out of lines. "Why would you do that?" she asked. Her voice wasn't angry. It was confused, like she couldn't believe I had stepped out of my assigned role. "Because I wanted people to see who you really are," I said. She blinked. "You humiliated me." "You humiliated yourself," I replied, voice steady. "I just stopped covering for you." Her lips parted, like she was about to respond, then closed again. She had no script for this part. She'd never expected it. The silence stretched between us, thicker than it had ever been. "I lost everything tonight," she said eventually. "No," I said. "You lost control. Not the same thing." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I could tell, in that moment, she realized she didn't know me anymore. The quiet husband, the safe one, the man she thought would keep swallowing lies just to keep the peace. I wasn't that man anymore. "I thought I could handle it," she whispered. "I thought it wouldn't go this far." "It always goes this far," I said. "You just didn't think you'd get caught." She opened her mouth again, but I stood up before she could say another word. "I'm going to bed," I said. "Guest room's yours." I walked away, not because I was done talking, but because I was done giving her the illusion of a second chance. That night I didn't sleep much, but I didn't toss or turn either. For the first time since all of this began, I wasn't wondering anymore. I wasn't playing detective or therapist or husband. I had stepped out of her play, out of the audience, out of the wings, and the stage she used to own? It was crumbling. Emily vanished for days. No texts, no calls, just silence. When she returned, she looked hollow. She admitted Jason wasn't love, just a spark to provoke jealousy. A performance. She wanted to feel wanted again, to be chased. But her games cost too much. I listened without reacting. Her apology came too late. Love can survive mistakes, but not manipulation. Ours had already died quietly, long before the truth showed up. Emily left without drama. just a note on the counter and keys in a dish. The house breathed differently without her. I found comfort in quiet routines, morning jogs, music, old hobbies. Months later, I met Sarah at the library. She was gentle, sincere. No pretense, no performance. For the first time, I felt seen, not for what I could provide, but for who I was. Freedom didn't come from revenge or closure. It came from finally choosing myself.